title of this presentation is Protect the Spark, how to increase your capacity and scale your business. All right, so little story right here to set things up. October 24, 2024, this is my sales room in our Century City location, which is our third location. I brought my studio manager in here. We had just celebrated our 2-year anniversary, and we sat down for our one-on-one, and I told him, I have to let you go today. The next day, at our Santa Monica location, my studio manager of 3 years and I said goodbye. She was moving back to the East Coast. Literally the next day, I called every single one of my front desk staff, and I let 90% of them go. It was like Black October. So why? At the end of 2024, I was sitting there thinking to myself and asking so many questions about like, why do I not feel like the business is where I think it should be? Why do I feel like I'm working so damn hard, but I don't have the results to show for it? Why was I working so hard and didn't have the profit that I thought that our business should have? Is the way that I've been doing things for the last 7 years the best way to do things? Or have I just been doing the same thing because that's the way I've always done it? I asked myself, am I prepared to have the hard conversations and make hard changes if that's what is going to be required of me to do? And then lastly, what if I do all this shit? What if I have all these conversations? What if I make all these decisions? And what if it doesn't work out? So hi, my name's Cody Romness. For the last 8 years, I've been building Allegiate. What we did is we took our collegiate strength and conditioning program at USC. I partnered with my strength coach and a former teammate of mine, and we replicated the same approach that we had as college athletes as a boutique fitness concept. We've got 3 locations in Los Angeles, Redondo Beach, Santa Monica, and Century City. We're working on our 4th right now, and we do about $2 million kind of coming through the business in terms of revenue, which I share for context, not to flex. So 8 years ago, how I started Allegiate was I was writing about my workouts on a blog. I had codyromness.com. I was actually, full circle moment, when I'm talking about shipping stuff, I was just shipping it out on Facebook, have no clue what was going to happen or what it was going to become. But what I cared about for me, mostly on fitness, was like the overlap of the mindset and the mentality that comes with training hard. Everybody in here, you guys automatically know it's like that athlete's mindset, but I had something to say and I was shipping it out on my blog. My future business partner was reading it. We started to talk about what if we replicated the same approach that we had as athletes as a fitness concept and turn it into a brand and turn it into a business. I wanted to start Allegiate because I wanted to be in control of my own destiny. I was working in tech sales at the time at a company called Patreon in San Francisco. They had just closed their sales department. I was out of a job. I had 3 months severance pay. And I was like, what the fuck am I going to do? How am I going to figure this out? But one of those amazing moments of like timing and lighting, the path started to kind of like present itself. And I didn't know if I would have the guts to make the call and go for it. But 8 years later, I'm very thankful that we did. So what I'm trying to do, what my business partners, what my staff, what we're trying to do in Allegiate is build a mainstream brand. Like I want to be a Barry's Bootcamp or a Barry's or a SoulCycle, but I want to do it with the style of training that we know and love. That's made me the man that I am today, that's introduced me to people, that's just like such a focal part of my identity. I'm sure it's obviously very similar for you guys as well because you're in this industry. Like it forms you and it molds you. And I want to take that and I want to elevate it at a big level. And now when I look at the boutique fitness space, if I look at brands that I think I admire just from a mainstream size, scope, helping a lot of people, a lot of business coming through these, what these folks have that I don't have yet is scale. So, what is scaling? I go to Google, I type it in, I said, all right, in a business context, scaling refers to the process of increasing a company's capacity for growth. Increasing a company's capacity for growth. But if you work with Allegiate as a studio manager or a marketer, I always tell people to cut the fluff and like, what are you actually trying to say? So increasing capacity. Okay, so if I want to scale, I got to increase capacity. Well, what is capacity? Capacity is the maximum amount that something can contain. So if we imagine this is a container right here. In that container, we've got in the blue stuff, the stuff I'm already doing, stuff we're already doing. The green is the headspace. It's my additional capacity. It's the stuff that I could add on, or I've got room to be able to do more things. So if I want to scale, I need to increase my capacity, right? I need to expand that amount of green area to be able to take on more stuff and do more stuff. But so far, though, I haven't hit the scale that I dreamed to have. I have gone from 0 to 1, from 1 to 2, from 2 to 3, and hopefully by Q2 of this year, from 3 to 4. And I know that scaling is hard as shit. And why I think, or in my experience, why this has been hard is because as an entrepreneur or a solopreneur, when you get started, you go from 0 to 1, you're the individual contributor, you're doing everything. When you start going to more locations, you are not the one doing the work, you are working through other people. And that is not a skill set that you have unless you've got some like managerial experience or you're looking for that. And anybody that's already trying to do this, even amongst the conversations I've already had with people, I know this is a pain point of like, man, it's easy if I'm doing all this stuff, but now that I got to work through other people, whew. The other thing is the unknowns. So this is a picture of one of my favorite books called The River of Doubt. It's about Teddy Roosevelt after he loses his second or third election, and he goes down a river in the Amazon, discovering this new river. And every single turn on this river, they have no idea what's going to happen. They don't know where they're going. They don't know if there's going to be a waterfall. The metaphor is there are unknowns at every single turn when you're trying to scale and you're trying to figure this thing out, and that's hard to deal with. This next one I kind of think about the Bezos effect. The founder that goes from starting it in his or her garage all the way to running hundreds and hundreds of thousands of employees, that's a different breed of cat. Like that's not how it always goes. Usually you've got different levels of people that have managed a business of this size, and then they grow even bigger, then they bring in somebody else that has more skill sets because they've been there and they've done it before. But here we are trying to figure out how to scale, and I don't want to bring other people into the business. Nobody's going to care as much as we do. My experience so far in scaling is it's boring as shit. Building the stuff, the systems, the infrastructure, all the stuff you guys probably already know to do, it's not fun work. And I feel a ton of friction, and I procrastinate it, and I just don't want to do it. And then this last piece is the idea of sunk cost. So we've spent all this time, say, building a system to get us where we are today. What I learned from going to 1 to 2, 2 to 3, it wasn't always the same systems that worked. I would get to 3 locations and I would look back at all this work that I'd made and I designed and done to go from 1 to 2, and now it doesn't work, it's obsolete. And so I have to think to myself, do I really want to go back and blow up a month's worth of work to figure this thing out and figure out what my next step's going to be? Not really, because I have all the sunk costs of the time that I spent doing that. And now if we think about, okay, I'm going to try to open 50 locations, 80 locations, it's logarithmically, exponentially going to get more difficult to scale. These are formidable opponents, right? These are dragons that we need to slay. But there's more. There is the whirlwind of daily activities, of running your own business. A coach calls out, you got to fill those shifts. A front desk bails when you were depending on them to take a sales appointment, you got to fill that gap. The whirlwind is the amount of daily activities that you have to deal with to run and operate your business. So while you're focusing on other things, so you can focus on other things, but as soon as that whirlwind comes, we're just going to move right back into working on the business and in the business because we got to save the ship. So here we are. We've got the challenges of scale, the stuff that I just kind of touched on in my experience so far, plus the whirlwind of all the shit that goes on for owning and operating your own business. And Google and scaling is telling us that we have to increase our capacity to scale. But I don't know about you guys, but that's how I feel most of the time my capacity is. I don't feel like I got a bunch of green area that I can just start to add on more stuff and take it on, and it's all going to be good. So what the hell do we do? Well, I would like to pose a different solution. I would like to say, in order to increase our capacity, we can decrease the amount of things that we're responsible for. And why this is so important, particularly for the business owner, particularly for the founder, particularly for the person that got your gym, your studio, your online business where it is today, you are the one that has the answers. You are the creative spark that can figure shit out. There's not other people that can see the things that you can see, that's dealt with the level of uncertainty that you've dealt with, that's made it wherever you are in your career, be it just getting started or your years or decades in the game. It still comes back to this. Like, we are a different breed of cat, and we need to protect that spark if we want to grow, scale, and go somewhere and do something. And how I propose that we do this is we eliminate shit that we don't need to be doing, or we delegate it to other people. And how we're gonna delegate and how we're gonna free up space and capacity is we're gonna build systems. We're gonna start thinking differently. We're gonna make repeatable processes. We're gonna document things. We're gonna do that unsexy work because it's going to allow us to free up capacity by giving a playbook and a manual to someone else or something else, and they can do that work. We're going to increase our capacity by running stuff through systems so we can free up more space. All right, so let's get a little bit more tactical now. Here's my playbook so far when it comes to scaling a business, scaling your operations, and like how I think about these things. Number one is you're gonna make the payoff worth it. Number two is you're gonna create a system that's meant to be delegated. Number three is you're gonna build a scorecard. And number four is you're gonna create an accountability system. Now we're gonna dive into each of these right now. So, make the payoff worth it. Let me take you back to that October 2024 when I'm sitting in my sales room with my manager and letting him go. Before that conversation happened, I'm thinking, okay, I want our business to make more money. I want to profit more. All right, what goes into making a profit in business? Well, you can grow your revenues and you can reduce your costs. For 99% of my career so far, it's always been about growing revenue. Hey, we need more revenue. We need more revenue. We got to keep and retain our clients, and we got to add more, add more, add more. And so, yes, that's true, but that's also really freaking difficult. And if you guys have figured out the easy way to do that, you should be up here giving the keynote, not me. And so I started thinking, all right, well, if I want to make more profit, is there anything else that I could possibly do? And I knew it came down to money in, money out. So I started thinking, well, I'm in charge, or I run in Allegiate, our business, I do the front of house stuff. So I do the managers and I do the front desk. And then my business partner, Tim, he runs all the coaches. He coaches the coaches, coaches the session. That's how we operate. So from a payroll standpoint, and fitness is pretty simple, you've got rent and you've got payroll. I can try to get my rent down, but the landlord is probably not going to be very compliant on that one. The only lever that I can control and potentially make a difference on is payroll. So I started thinking to myself, okay, if payroll is the lever that I could pull to make a difference, what could I potentially do to lessen the amount of payroll that my department I'm responsible for? I started thinking, all right, well, my staffing structures, I've got a studio manager at each location. Under that, I have a team of front desk that works with them. If I made a virtual front desk system, don't let me lose you here, if I made a virtual front desk system, and instead of everybody having their own front desk, if I unified it under one inbox, one system, and that person was responsible for everything that everybody else was, and I can pay somebody significantly less in the Philippines or wherever you end up doing it, what difference would that make on my business? So I bust out the spreadsheet and I start looking at it and I start hammering it out, and I find $7,500 a month in payroll savings. That to me is making the payoff worth it. So now that I've got the idea, now that I'm thinking about what can I do here, next is, all right, how do I actually do this? Most of the conventional advice on scaling a business is work on the business, don't work in the business. Work on the business, don't work in the business. I think it's only half true. I think you need to do both. I think you need to go in the business so you know what to do when it comes to working on the business. You know the details, you know the cadence, you know the structure, you know what good is, what not good is, and when it comes to talking to that person giving feedback, you're not just some like manager saying you're not doing this correctly. It's like, no, dude, I know the position, I know the job, and that confidence transfers over to everything. So what you're seeing here is this is a project management software called Asana. It's basically just a really robust task management system. And our old system at Allegiate, I would have a paper checklist with all the things that you were supposed to do. So the front desk comes in, they get their piece of paper, they put their name on the thing, and they rip through that checklist. At the end of that, they put it into their shift, at the end of their shift, they put it into a little paper stack, and then the manager can come in at the end of the week and see just a quality control check. Did so-and-so get all the work done that they were supposed to get done? So I had that infrastructure, but now instead of doing it at all 3 locations, I had to figure out how to merge it into one, which is kind of what you're seeing right here. And while I'm doing this and I'm blowing stuff up and I'm thinking about it, in the back of my head and in the back of your head, if this kickstarts you onto that next thing of like, oh man, and I guarantee you guys are already thinking about the stuff that you're gonna implement and improve, in the back of your head, it's just like, what if this doesn't work out? What if this doesn't work out? What if this doesn't work out? And the best way that I've found to keep that little voice quiet and just keep putting one step in front of the other, because, you know, honestly, like I hired this virtual front desk person. I thought we nailed it. 2 days later, somebody else took her for a different job, and it was right during Christmas, and I had like a week to figure out this new position where I thought it was all solved. And that voice in the back of my head, what if this doesn't work out? I told you this was gonna work out. The best way to answer that voice is just say, yeah, but what if it does? Like, what if it does work out? And when you make the payoff worth it, like I was talking about at the top, you've got that much more confidence to just stay in the game, because you're like, I know the cost benefit on this thing and I know it's worth it. Part 3 is create a scorecard. So a great book that I read on this is called The 4 Disciplines of Execution. It's pretty academic and technical, but it taught me this idea of create a scorecard. And what this is it's instantly visible. You can see if you're winning or if you're losing, but crucially, you can see how does it compare to what you set out to do. So those lines in the middle, that says like, that's our target goal. And sometimes you're trying to be above that, sometimes you're trying to be below it, but numbers in isolation are very difficult. Numbers need to be next to something else. So price anchoring in sales, right? Oh, it's $500 a month. Is that expensive? Well, compared to $20,000 a month, no. Compared to $1 a month, yes. So this is a very simple graph that you can instantly read, and you know if you're winning or losing based on what you set out to hit. All right, part 4 of freeing up capacity and giving yourself that creative spark, more energy and oxygen and space to do the things it needs to do, is creating a system for accountability. So we briefly touched on this. This is my virtual front desk, whose name is Janeth, by the way, and she's absolutely fabulous and has been even better than I imagined that this system could be. If I forget to say that, like, we did all the hard stuff and now it's even better than I thought it was gonna be. So there's the savings on payroll, but the production and the level and the quality of all the stuff that we're doing is better than it was. So she comes in, she assigns her PM checklist, her AM checklist, she rips it all done. If she's got a question, she leaves it, I instantly get a thing, and then give her some feedback on that. But what I found, and what our manager found is she was, because Janeth wanted to do a good job, she was constantly DMing us and slacking us. And it was like, I know you guys know this one too. It's like you get home after grinding all day and now you've got these mission critical Slack messages that you're like, dude, like, how do I get out of this? I found, and by the way, if you have staff, they're just gonna, if they're good too, they're gonna respond back to it. And you might, oh great, I got somebody that's gonna do that. But your job is to protect that person so they're not going to burn out and burn and churn. So they want to stay with you and they like what they're doing and they don't start hating their work, because it's just going to bleed over into that. Like, you as the owner, fine, you got to figure that thing out, set your own boundaries, do what you got to do. But just part of the game, like, that's what we signed up for. But I don't think your staff should have to do that. I think you need to build things and know that that's like how things work, and you got to protect them. And this is what I found was one of the best ways to do it, where I just said, all right, what we're going to do is we're going to do an office hours on Tuesdays and Thursdays at 10 a.m. You have to batch all your questions. No more hitting us up all the time. No more DMing us all the time. I know you're trying to do a great job. We're going to batch it in office hours. You record those office hours, and you actually get a second order positive thing that happens for you, because now, if your staff is following and doing these office hours, you're building rapport with that person in these one-on-one meetings. They're surfacing questions that are like edge cases that you're like, shit, like, how would you know that? That's actually a really good question. And then they're identifying areas in your system that you built that you actually might need to fix or you might need to change. But if you don't have that reoccurring feedback system, you miss out on that. You record the meetings, you use an AI note taker, it pops everything in terms of next actions, it emails you immediately, and bam, you're done. The next piece that we've got on this quality control system, this system for accountability, that's the bigger, broader thing of what we're talking about right now, is, okay, just because you're doing the thing, that's one thing, but how are you doing the thing? So in the fitness realm, you could do back squats are good, right? Well, it depends on the back squat. How are you doing the back squat? You got no depth, you got great depth, right? How you do a movement impacts if it's good or if it's not good. So this is my manager's responsibility. You can see I've got a simple scorecard for her. She's just got a Google sheet where she takes a screenshot of this thing and she goes down, she looks at how fast are you replying to our text messages? How fast are you replying to emails? How's your copywriting when you're writing these things? Are the things that you're doing, are they being done to the expectation and the quality that we demand and we expect? She puts an update on a weekly basis. Janeth gets it. She says, thanks, Bella. And then the last piece on this accountability system is like a higher level performance review. And if that gives you like, oh, I don't want to do things like that, figure out a way to convince yourself that having a level of structure and accountability and pouring into your staff and having them reflect on the work that they've been doing and giving you that information so you, the manager, can now read that, sit through it, learn how your staff is perceiving things, this person that you're constantly investing in, how are they perceiving things? You look at that, and now you have a formalized meeting that'll follow a structured agenda where you're giving them feedback, specific feedback on how things are going, what they can improve on, and what they've been crushing it on. And if rolling through your head right now is like, yo, this sounds like a lot of work. It is. But this is Warren Buffett, one of the most successful investors in the world. And what I want you to take away from this is like, it's not work you're doing, you're investing. You're building an asset. You're building something now that's going to take an upfront capital and time cost, but it's going to save you so much time down the road. But future you is never going to have that space, that time, if current you doesn't just smack this thing and start working at it and build those systems. You're not just giving yourself extra work. Remember, we're freeing ourselves up for that capacity, but you got to think like an investor. And I speak this from experience because if you go home and start building this stuff and you're just like, dude, that Cody guy just added so much work to my plate. Just think back like, yeah, but I'm being like Warren Buffett and I'm building assets right now and I'm investing now to save and pay off for myself in the future. All right, so how is this actually going for me? Am I just standing up here pontificating to you guys, or is this legit? Well, in October, the hard decisions were made and those hard conversations were had. November, December, and January, we set out to execute. And the red was where my payroll used to be. The green is where it is now. Now I took out all the numbers there just to keep some of that out there and to simplify things, but it's about $7,500 a month in payroll savings. And again, the top line revenue is either the same or growing. And so we didn't sacrifice a lot of quality, because if we do this and our top line revenue falls because our systems are shit and people hate the system, we didn't do anything. I just lowered the stakes. So we kept it, we grew it, and we reduced the costs. All right, So how do we bring this home for you? So much, I think, of the culture, of the advice, of the stuff that's out there is like more. Especially, honestly, strength and conditioning coaches too. It's always more books, more certifications, more learning, more this, more that. And I want to leave you with there's another option, and it's less but better. It's taking those little energies that are going all this way and cutting some of them or delegating them and being velocity, which is force, in a given direction. I want to propose that to increase your capacity, you can do less. You can do less, and how you do less is building those systems to free yourself up. And when you free yourself up, you create space. And I'm not talking just to everybody, I'm talking about the people that have the creative spark, the creative spirit, the intuition to be able to hop into the unknown, to hack stuff away, to see what we should do, but you're never gonna get there if you're always just full on your capacity. But when you start getting that space, your creativity is going to surface ideas. It's gonna surface things that you can do, that you might do, that you should do. And metaphorically, these are roads that you could take. And when you decide to pick a road, I want you to commit to the road. I want you to see it through. When that little voice inside of your head, or your staff's head, or your spouse's head, or whoever starts saying, yeah, but what if this doesn't work? Just tell them, what if it does? Keep coming back to that, what if it does? Because you made the payoff worth it. You decided to go down this road. What if it does work? The road's hard, but I want you to just remember that when you're walking, like, look up and appreciate it. Like the sun's rising, there's birds flying, the sun's peeking through the clouds. Like you're seeing stuff that's so beautiful that other people don't get to see. Because yeah, you might be on this road solo and alone, but you're building the business. But since every action has an equal and opposite reaction, the business is also building you. And I think that that is just the right character and perspective to look at these things, to just get more out of the whole journey and just have an appreciation for it. So the last thing before I'll end is I've got an offer for anybody. If you guys want to book a 30-minute strategy session, talk about increasing capacity, talk about this kind of stuff relative to you and your business, I'm happy to do it and talk through it. And other than that, thank you all for being in the arena and listening. The question is, okay, if I want to make these changes, but we're worried about, again, what if this doesn't work out? Or like, what if the morale is going to drop? What if everybody likes that coach and we're gonna lose members as a result of it? I think context is important. Like spending that time to really think about, like, is that going to happen or is that not going to happen? Is that just fear talking, or is that actually going to happen? And then really just going back to like, is the payoff worth it? Like, it's going to be hard. It's going to be hard decisions no matter which way you're going to go. But if the end benefit is really where you need to steer, I think you just have to eventually make the commitment, see it through, and do the best that you possibly can. And I think in our world so far, this is so weird, it's 21st century. I made a TikTok about basically redesigning everything I just talked about. I made a TikTok in like October when I was going to do it, and I posted it up there. I had it ripped apart. People were like, business owner, classic, learns about cutting head count. Everybody's going to hate your virtual front desk system. Oh my God, like the gym's about people. And I was like, shit, man, like maybe this isn't a good idea. You know what I mean? But it's just like, take it for what it is. Like it was a TikTok feedback, but I just say that like those things are never going to go away. And eventually you just have to make the call and do it. And you might lose it, but the last piece on that is extend your timeline horizon out longer. Instead of looking at it as like a month, it might be choppy in a month. Stretch that shit out to 6 months, and you're probably gonna be rolling. Yeah, well, it was the lever I could pull on the payroll front was on the front of house side, so studio managers and front desk. I wasn't gonna do anything with the coaches because though I talk about it, it's not like in our business, places that I would cut. That's more my business partner's responsibility. So it was really like, okay, I've only got so much I could do. Frankly, I didn't think that the performance was as good as I could from the studio manager, where the ROI wasn't justified. And so back to this point, like the conversations were hard, and I held on longer than I should have, because I don't want to do this. I'm not some like crazy, capitalist just want to, chop heads and like save money. Like, these are people that I care about and that love Allegiate. But at the end of the day, like, I owed it to myself and I owed it for the business to do the right thing. And I just had to take it upon myself to make this call. And I know I've said it a couple times, but when it got emotional and when it got hard and I had to have those combos, because I knew that payoff, because I knew, but if this works, like, it's going to be a game changer.
The sole provider turns into shit. When do you start handing off? And what were those mistakes?
The hard answer is you got to get way better at building systems, and you got to get way tighter, and you got to get way better. And you got to provide that structure, accountability, and system for your staff, with accountability, with everything that they need, because they're not you, and they're not going to care as much as you do, and they're going to leave eventually. So your system has to be that much more fucking dialed in to be able to account for that reality. Question is kind of, what does a virtual front desk do? There's a member communications element. So there's email, there's text messages to all the different individual locations. There's, checking people in and out, the basic mind body stuff like that, handling contracts, somebody wants to freeze, somebody wants to terminate, all those like operational things, right? That, I could do, or my manager could do. And she was like, oh, I can just do those things. I go, no, but you're missing the point. Like, I don't want you doing those things. I need to free you from those things so I can have your calendar stacked with sales meetings. And you can just mow them down, and you can do what you are great at, which is signing people up to Allegiate, and I can just focus you there. And so anything that was not related to that was like, and it's mostly operation stuff and admin stuff, that's what I built into the virtual front desk. And by the way, as she keeps crushing it, now she writes some newsletter stuff, and like now she helps out on some marketing stuff, which, by the way, ChatGPT and a badass person in the Philippines that wants to be better at stuff, and you give them enough content of how you want to write, they've got a playbook of how I should write copy and stuff like that. You feed it through there, it works. So in my perfect world, I would have somebody at the front desk that's greeting somebody that's the most personable person that you've ever met, and you're just like, damn, that front desk is awesome. In my experience of 8 years of doing this, that person does not often come through your door. And I would say that we're capturing 95% of the value that we were capturing in person, and our Janeth is doing a better job than the in-person front desk we're doing. And so much of the community, because they come in, they check in, and bam, they're out stretching, or they're into their, like, that's where most of the community is happening with the coaches and with the rest of the members and in that environment. The front desk giving a great high five and a smile might be a cherry on top, but 99% of the work in that aspect's already done.
And I asked
Yeah, but there might be another way. There could be another way that they would be happy with as well. So we built the whole system, we did all this stuff. I found 2 candidates because I was gonna do a morning block and an evening block. And in my head, I was like, okay, if the event that one of them doesn't work out, I can let them go and I can move up the top performer and give them more hours, right? And plus it kind of safeguards me a little bit. But what the VAs wanted was they wanted full time, they wanted more hours. And so they were looking to get a place that gave them more hours. And so when I found out, when that happened to me and I had, 5 days to figure it out before Christmas hit, I was like, okay, I'm not going to do this 2 VA system. I'm going 1, and I'm going to give them the structure and the hours that they want, because they wanted the stability. And then I would just say, having a great job description, really spending the time to do it, matching the resumes and the candidates against the job description. Like you'll source through a bunch and they won't be good. You get the videos, you do the in-person interviews, you do the reference checks, and then if you believe that you have a good enough system, pull the trigger. First thing that comes to mind is just managing digital communications. I check my email once, maybe twice a day, and I batch them, and I'm pretty violent about that. And so if people need to reach me, they can call me. There's other ways to get me, but that's a productivity suck that just from your own personal standpoint, you can eliminate pretty fast. Slack, I would say the same way, where like and it's hard because we're so used to being like on it all the time, but like I really try to batch that stuff, and you're gonna feel the residue and the friction as you try to do that, but as soon as you start getting more distance, you're gonna have a little bit more capacity. And then I think once you start thinking this way and doing these sorts of things, it kind of starts to shift your perspective about like, oh shit, like maybe I could do that with this too. And like you just start thinking that way, you know? Does that help? Ask it. Ask me more, or ask this. Do you have automations?
No.
So I would say there's software and automations that you can use to hit that right message, right time, right person. And yes, you're right. Eventually, if they book a call on your calendar, you should take that call. But they're going to get the message from you like right as soon as they do it, and you're off to the races. So there's softwares and things that you can do to solve that solution, so you're not glued to it. I would say like, yo, you're doing a good job, man. Like keep it up. Because I don't think when you're constantly trying and shipping, like you just carry a lot of pressure, you know? Like you're trying to make it happen. Everybody's looking for you to make it happen. And you're pumping your other staff up and stuff like that and making them feel good and recognizing them too. But like it can be lonely, like super lonely. And so, which, you know, it's what we signed up for. There's as tough as that can be, it's also like an advantage because you become very self-sufficient and self-reliant on things. But I would just that bit I think would be important. And I would take my own advice on this, and I would have started scaling and bringing people into our business sooner, kind of to your point as well. Like if you feel like maybe I should start bringing people in, you're probably too late, and you should build that in sooner. Because you're going to learn more about it, and you're going to free up your capacity, but also just free up, like the business is going to be honestly better because if you have the systems, to your point, like all those things, your VA or Elizabeth or Janeth is going to be great if you figure out how to give them something that's great. Think about what you want to scale. So in my world, I wasn't thinking about open location 2 and 3 when number 1 was just like so. And it was like, okay, we could scale our revenue, so we could get more members, but then we could also scale our personal training, and that kind of set us off to like building out a simultaneously personal training business while running the group classes. And within that, we had to scale our staff. And so for the first 2 years, I mean, it was me and my business partner. I was working every front desk shift. He was coaching every single class for 2 freaking years. And our first, the only reason we had our unpaid intern be able to take a class because he was getting married and both of us were going to his wedding. You know what I mean? But like, that's just how it goes in the beginning. And I think like just thinking about it and then putting your enough ideas on the table and letting your intuition start to pick like, this is what I think is the right decision, like trusting that. Because you can always go down the road and you can climb back from it. Like Bezos talks about there's doors that you can walk through and you can walk right back out if it doesn't work. And then there's doors that you can walk through and you can't walk back. So if it's like one of those big ones where you can't walk back through the door, take your time, make the right decision. But if it's a door that you can walk in, be like, no, I don't really like this room. I'm coming right back out this way. You give it enough time to see if it could work. I think that's a good way to do it. But it really to succinctly bring it back down, I think in your scenario, it comes to managing and working with people. And if that's getting you off the floor and somebody else in, and going through 5 people till you find a great one.
In that stage, you're still trying to build the systems too. So
Yeah.
you have to obviously be involved.
Yeah.
So that's like kind of my question is like, as you're...
Bro's hard as shit.
That's the short answer. Yeah.
And then practically we use a software called Trainual. That's the one that we use with a lot of our system and processes. It's scaled pretty nicely. Asana is another one I really like a lot, a bit more techy, but, and then just when it gets overwhelming, just start 1 foot in front of the other. Same shit you tell your clients of like, you know, use that same thing on yourself and just take it bit by bit. Yeah, I went with the admin and the ops side because I had a gal that was great at sales and I knew that she could handle that. And I need to free her up from anything that went into blocking her from doing that. And thus that kind of mostly led me into the admin side. By the way, like now speaking of the sunk cost thing and having to redesign systems, I didn't have to use to train coaches on sales. Now I have to build a system that teaches coaches more on sales and how we approach it and like all those things, right? That's going to be a ton of work that I don't want to do, but it's what we need to do now that the business is different. And then even stuff like, Upwork, if you guys don't use Upwork, it's a great way to find freelancers. You can find international Allegiate. I've got people in Pakistan, Philippines, and New Delhi and Nigeria helping us on work for far less money than somebody in the States, and they do a freaking better job because they're hungry and they want to work. So any graphic design work stuff that you want to do, any stuff that you don't like doing but you know you need to do, Upwork is a beautiful place to be able to get those things solved. And frankly, even if there's stuff that you like doing, but somebody else could either do it or do it better, like outsource that shit. Like I like doing graphic design and stuff, but it's not the best use of my time at this part in the business. It's my responsibility to find those people, get them the systems, and then just play manager.
What was your balance between the work, the in and on, early on, and what it is now?
In the very beginning, there was no on, it was all in. It was all in, doing all the work, doing all the stuff. And then it started to get, fear and pain and anxiety is a very great motivator where I'm like, I'm gonna die if I keep doing this. Right. So then it's like, all right, well, I'm gonna start listening to that because I gotta get this thing in my body, like I gotta get rid of that. And if I keep going this way, I've been living with it for a long time, how am I gonna get away from that? And then that starts to lead you into what we're talking about in branding and systems and processes and all that shit. But frankly, it was just like, man, I gotta fix this shit because I don't wanna be feeling this way all the time. So I don't want you working that amount, and you owe it to yourself and the business to figure out these things. And so what's like more of a practical thing is like, it switched. Now it's still, I work a lot in the business and on, but the levels are just different. Like I'm just at another plateau now of just like focused on different things where I'm hiring and having help for organic content, or like on the paid media advertising front, I'm doing different stuff and building systems. I wasn't doing that in our first year, but it's still kind of the same structure and process. It's just now on a different thing. You know what I mean? So now it's on a different thing. And hopefully going back to that Bezos from startup founder in the garage all the way to big company, like you now start to have to move through people. You know what I mean? And like, I look forward to hopefully one day I get to hire an executive where it's like, okay, now I'm not working with like, hourly employees. Like this is a person with a family and is used to salaries and like all these other things. Like that's now just another level that you have to elevate towards. And you have more confidence if you're doing the work bit by bit by bit by bit. Like strength training is a beautiful metaphor. Keep putting in the reps, keep getting stronger, and then you can eventually push more weight.
Who are you learning the most from right now?
Honestly, this was really fun just hearing all you guys talk about your business. Like you guys are doing an awesome thing. And it's not easy to put on events and like get people to show up to shit. So like kudos to you guys, because that was really cool, and I'm really thankful to be able to talk about this stuff. So just talking to other people that are in it, like I think the other like in terms of actual stuff, content that I'm consuming, I mean I'm a huge Hormozi fan. If you guys don't know who Alex Hormozi is, you should absolutely watch his stuff. His wife Layla is another great version of her stuff. There's the Chris Williamson podcast. This guy Dan Martell on YouTube is awesome, more of like the CEO kind of mindset thing. I read a lot of books. Dan Kennedy, if you guys aren't familiar with Dan Kennedy, but direct response advertising, and he's got a slew of other books like Ruthless Management of People and Profits and talk.
You read that in October.
Bro, that book. I actually didn't. I just finished it last month, but it was a lot of those same things. Dan Kennedy would be a great one. There's probably a bunch of others that I'm not necessarily remembering right now, but Traction's the other book I got on my list. I just haven't hit it yet.
It's a good book.
Yeah.
Good one.
Is it? Cool. I hear that. Awesome. Anybody else? Yeah.
What was the name of the book that you guys were talking about?
The E-Myth? E-Myth. Yeah. That's an awesome one. E-Myth is great. Working backwards. And a book on Amazon is really great if you're going through a lot of hiring and training staff. It really helps you with structuring interviews and managing that whole process. Working backwards. I forget the author, but it's in the context of Amazon. Hell yeah.
You guys give it up for Cody.
Thanks, guys. Oh, yeah. Dude. Fuck yes. Thank you, man. These are fresh. Thank you, guys. Appreciate you guys. Yeah, hey, I'm in, baby. I feel like it's like signing day or something right now. Like I'm fucking like, I'm coming in.